I sold my truck and worked double shifts to pay her college tuition. But she lied about working late while her GPS led to a cheap motel downtown. Before watching the video, please tell us in the comments, which country are you watching from? My name is Ethan Moore, and I am 32 years old. I never imagined the woman I loved most would destroy my trust so completely. What started as a quiet, happy life in Ohio turned into the darkest chapter of my existence. Life used to be peaceful. Every morning, I'd wake before sunrise, brew a pot of coffee, and kiss Lydia goodbye before heading to the auto shop. She'd smile, her hair messy, still half asleep, and whisper, "You're my everything, Ethan." I believed her with all my heart. I wasn't a rich man, but I worked hard. I fixed cars all day, took weekend shifts, and skipped vacations. All I wanted was to build a future for us, a small home near the lake, maybe a family one day. Lydia was studying marketing, and I wanted her to focus without worrying about money. I covered rent, groceries, even her student loans. Love made sacrifice feel easy. At night, we'd cook together in our tiny kitchen. She'd tell me stories from her job, her demanding boss, her dreams of promotion. I loved how passionate she sounded. I thought we were growing stronger. When she started saying she had to stay late at work, I didn't question it. That's what trust does. It blinds you while it comforts you. Then small things began to change. She stopped leaving her phone on the table during dinner. Her perfume lingered longer, sharper, different. I told myself I was imagining things, that I was just tired from work. But deep down, something didn't feel right. Still, I kept showing up. I took on extra clients, fixed more cars, saved every dollar for our dream. I imagined proposing to her that Christmas. I'd already picked a ring, simple, elegant, something she'd love. I even rehearsed what I'd say in the mirror every morning. I was building a life for us, but she was building lies behind my back. One night, she came home later than ever, after midnight. She looked tired, but not the kind of tired that came from work. Her hair was messy, her lipstick faded. I asked how the night went, and she snapped, "Don't start with your questions, Ethan. I'm exhausted." Then she went straight to bed without another word. I sat there alone, staring at the cold coffee mug in my hands, wondering when love turned into silence. I didn't know it yet, but that night marked the beginning of my downfall. As the clock ticked past 2 a.m., I made myself a promise. If something was wrong, I'd find out. I'd uncover the truth no matter how painful it was. Because sometimes, the quiet before the storm is the most dangerous sound of all. The next few days felt strange. Lydia's schedule grew unpredictable, and her phone never left her hand. She'd laugh softly at her messages, then quickly turn the screen away when I looked. I told myself she deserved privacy. But deep down, a cold doubt started spreading inside me. She began dressing differently too. New blouses, short skirts, expensive perfume I hadn't bought. When I asked about it, she smiled and said, "Just office stuff, Ethan. You wouldn't get it." That sentence stung more than I admitted. I didn't get it, because I didn't belong in her new world. At work, I tried to stay focused. I fixed cars, wiped grease off my hands, and forced fake smiles for customers. But my mind was somewhere else, trapped in a maze of questions with no answers. Every time Lydia texted that she'd be working late, I pictured her under fluorescent office lights, surrounded by paperwork. I wanted to believe that image so badly. Then one afternoon, a man named Carl came into the shop, a co-worker of Lydia's. While chatting, he mentioned casually, "Man, Lydia's lucky. She's barely been around the office this week and nobody says a word." The wrench slipped from my hand. My stomach dropped. I tried to sound calm, asking, "Oh, really? I thought she had that big client project." Carl looked confused. "Project? Nah, the team's been quiet lately. Maybe she's working remote or something." His words echoed in my head all night. When Lydia came home later, smiling like everything was fine, I couldn't even speak. I just stared at her, trying to read the truth on her face. She talked about traffic, about a meeting that ran long, about how tired she was. Every word sounded like a rehearsed lie. After dinner, she went to shower, leaving her purse on the counter. I don't know what came over me, guilt, anger, fear. But I opened it. Inside, I found a motel receipt. My heart stopped. The name printed on it wasn't hers. It was Mr. Aaron Wells. The date was last night. When she came out of the shower, humming softly, I couldn't move. I slipped the receipt back and forced a smile. For the first time, I realized that love can be both a gift and a weapon, and I had just been disarmed. That night, I barely slept. Every sound outside felt like a whisper of betrayal. I kept seeing her laugh, imagining her in someone else's arms, wondering when she decided I wasn't enough. The next morning, she kissed my cheek before leaving, acting like everything was normal. I watched her drive away, knowing that every mile she covered was another lie between us. I wasn't ready to confront her yet. I needed proof. I needed the truth to look me in the eye. Because once it did, I knew nothing in my life would ever be the same again. It happened on a Thursday. Lydia rushed out of the apartment, claiming she had to meet a client for a late-night proposal. Her phone buzzed on the counter. She'd forgotten it in her hurry. I picked it up, ready to call her back, but the screen lit up with a notification that froze me. It was her GPS app. Open. Still tracking her last destination. The address wasn't her office. It was a motel on the far edge of town, one known for hourly rates and secrecy. My breath caught. I told myself there had to be another explanation. There had to be. But my gut already knew the truth. I sat in my truck for 10 minutes, engine off, hands trembling. Every part of me screamed to stay home, but I couldn't. I needed to see it. I needed to destroy the fantasy once and for all. So I drove. The highway lights blurred as tears built up, but I refused to blink them away. My heart pounded like a drum inside my chest. Every second closer to that motel felt like another piece of me breaking. When I pulled into the gravel lot, I saw it. Her car, parked neatly near room 12. I parked across the street and sat there, staring at that door. My mind raced with memories, her laugh, our kitchen talks, her promises. They all burned away under the cruel glow of the neon sign above the motel. Then the door opened. Lydia stepped out, her hair messy, her blouse unbuttoned at the top. A man followed, young, unshaven, wearing cheap cologne and a careless grin. He looked nothing like me. Smaller, weaker, with eyes that screamed immaturity. They kissed, laughed, and got into her car. I felt my chest cave in. I didn't shout. I didn't chase them. I just sat there, watching the woman I'd built my life around drive away with someone who couldn't even fill my shoes. That was the night something inside me died. The part that believed love could fix everything. I drove home in silence. The apartment felt colder than ever. Her pictures on the wall mocked me. Her scent lingered like poison. I sat on the couch until sunrise, replaying the scene again and again, trying to find a reason, any reason, that could justify what I saw. When she came home later, pretending nothing happened, I didn't say a word. I just smiled and said, "Good morning." Inside, I was already gone. Love had turned into ashes, and I was standing in the middle of the fire. That night, I made another promise to myself. I would not cry again. I would not beg for answers. I would find strength in the silence she left behind. Because sometimes, revenge begins the moment you stop breaking for the person who broke you. What would you do if someone you loved betrayed you like this? Comment below. When I finally confronted Lydia, I wasn't angry. I was calm, too calm. I waited for her to come home, sitting at the kitchen table with the receipt in front of me. The moment she saw it, her eyes froze, then darted toward the door like a trapped animal. "What's this, Lydia?" I asked quietly. My voice didn't shake, though my heart did. She stammered, reaching for words that didn't exist. "Ethan, it's not what you think. It's just a mistake." A mistake, that's what she called it. I laughed, not from humor, but disbelief. Months of lies, stolen time, hidden messages, and a motel with another man, all a mistake. She tried to twist the story, turning guilt into accusation. "You're paranoid. You've been acting strange lately, always watching me, doubting me." Her words came sharp, defensive, desperate. I didn't yell. I didn't throw anything. I just looked at her, really looked at her, the woman I had sacrificed everything for. I realized in that moment she wasn't the same person I'd fallen in love with. Somewhere along the way, she'd traded love for convenience, honesty for excitement, and me for someone who offered nothing real. She stormed out of the apartment that night, slamming the door so hard it rattled the walls. The silence that followed was deafening. I sat there, staring at the cracked mirror above the fireplace. In it, I saw myself. Tired eyes, shaking hands. A man who'd lost everything trying to save something already dead. For days I went through the motions. Work, sleep, repeat. I couldn't tell my friends. I couldn't tell my parents. How could I admit that the woman I trusted most had been living a double life? Every sound reminded me of her laugh. Every scent brought her back. But slowly, the anger began to replace the pain. It wasn't the kind that explodes. It was the kind that simmers, patient and cold. I stopped checking her social media. I stopped waiting for her texts. The mirror in the hallway stayed cracked, and I left it that way. A reminder that once something breaks, it never truly returns to what it was. One night, I looked at my reflection again and said aloud, "You are done being the fool." It felt like reclaiming a part of myself. I had loved deeply, yes, but I had also ignored every sign that screamed for attention. That's when I knew I wouldn't chase her. I wouldn't beg. She wanted freedom, and I'd let her drown in it. I'd rebuild piece by piece until the man in the mirror no longer looked like a victim. Because revenge isn't always loud. Sometimes it's the quiet decision to keep walking while the liar stands in ruins. After Lydia left, the apartment felt hollow, like a body without a soul. Her scent lingered on the couch, her clothes still hung in the closet, and her laughter haunted the corners of every room. I tried to throw away her things, but my hands froze each time. How do you erase someone who was once your whole world? Days blurred together. I stopped eating properly, slept on the couch, and skipped work. The silence grew heavier, pressing against my chest like a weight I couldn't shake off. Every time my phone buzzed, I hoped it was her. Some message, some explanation. But it never came. She was gone, and I was left with nothing but the ashes of a love I once thought eternal. One night, I sat by the window watching rain fall against the glass. I remembered how she used to trace her fingers along the droplets and whisper, "I love you, even when it rains." Those words felt poisonous now. Love hadn't disappeared. It had rotted from the inside, leaving me with the stench of betrayal. My best friend Caleb showed up one morning. He took one look at me and said, "You're wasting away, man. She doesn't deserve your grief." I wanted to argue, to defend her, but I couldn't. Instead, I broke down. The first time I'd cried since the motel. Caleb didn't say much. He just let me collapse, let me breathe out months of pain I'd buried too deep. That night, we sat on the porch, and he said something that stuck with me forever. "Pain's a teacher, Ethan. You can let it destroy you or let it rebuild you." Those words hit harder than anything Lydia had ever said. The next morning, I made a decision. I cleaned the apartment. Every memory of her, gone. Photos, gifts, her favorite mug, all packed into a box and burned behind the shop where I worked. Watching the smoke rise felt like watching my heart finally breathe again. I started showing up to work early, staying late. I didn't talk much, but my hands worked with new focus. Every car I fixed felt like a piece of me being rebuilt. Slowly, customers noticed. My boss noticed. And for the first time in months, I noticed myself, standing, breathing, alive. Love had failed me, but pain had reshaped me. I realized revenge didn't always mean hurting someone back. Sometimes it meant becoming someone they could never break again. By the time Lydia called weeks later, I didn't even answer. I looked at her name glowing on my phone, then hit decline. That small act felt more powerful than any angry words could ever be. Because sometimes, the greatest revenge is peace. The kind that burns brighter than any memory of love. 3 months later, the pain had cooled into determination. The ashes of my old life became the soil for something new. I quit the garage and started my own small repair shop with Caleb's help. We rented a rundown building near the highway and worked every waking hour to make it shine. At first it was hard. Customers were few and money was tight. But I wasn't afraid of struggle. Struggle was all I knew. Every dent I fixed, every engine I rebuilt, felt like stitching a wound inside me. I began to realize that the best revenge wasn't shouting or fighting. It was rising. Quietly. Relentlessly. Word spread fast. People loved honest work, and that's what I gave them. Within months, Moore Auto became known for fair prices and quality service. I'd built something real, something mine. The pain that once broke me had turned into my fuel. Then one afternoon, the past walked through my door. Lydia. She looked different, thinner, nervous, holding her car keys like a shield. "Ethan," she whispered, "my car won't start. I didn't know this was your shop." Her voice trembled like guilt was choking her. I smiled faintly and said, "Pop the hood." She hesitated, probably expecting anger or humiliation, but I gave her none. As I worked, she kept talking about how things had gone wrong, how Aaron had left her, how she missed what we had. Her words barely touched me. I was done being her audience. When I finished the repair, I handed her the invoice. "No charge," I said. She looked at me like she didn't understand. I added, "Consider it closure." Her eyes filled with tears. "Ethan, can we—" "No," I interrupted. "We can't. You broke something that doesn't glue back together." She tried to apologize, but I turned away, wiping grease from my hands. The silence between us said more than any argument could. I wasn't angry anymore. I was free. She left quietly, and I watched her drive off, realizing that revenge didn't always mean seeing someone suffer. Sometimes it meant letting them see how much better you became without them. That night, I sat outside my shop, watching the sunset reflect on the polished cars. For the first time, I felt proud, not because I'd hurt her back, but because I hadn't let her ruin who I was. I'd taken the fire she lit and turned it into my own rebirth. The Phoenix plan wasn't about destroying her. It was about rebuilding me. And I had done it, piece by piece, with every scar, every tear, every sleepless night. Because when someone burns you down, you can either stay in the ashes or rise. If you were in my place, would you forgive or walk away? Tell me in comments. Months passed, and life moved forward. My shop flourished, customers lined up, and my name carried weight in town. I wasn't just fixing cars anymore. I was fixing my life. Each day began with purpose, not pain. The man who once begged for love had turned into someone who didn't need anyone's approval. Then one evening, while closing up, I got a text from an unknown number. "Ethan, please, I need to talk." It was Lydia. For a moment, I almost deleted it. But curiosity, or maybe closure, made me open it. She wrote about how everything had fallen apart. Aaron had taken her savings, cheated on her, and disappeared. She'd lost her apartment, her job, and her so-called friends. "I deserve it," she wrote. "I broke the only good thing I ever had." Reading her words, I felt something unexpected, not joy, not pity, but clarity. The world had finally balanced the scales without me lifting a finger. What she'd done to me, life had done back to her. Later that week, I saw her by chance at the grocery store. She looked nothing like the confident woman I once loved. Her eyes were tired, her smile forced. She froze when she saw me, clutching her basket like it might protect her. "Ethan," she whispered, "I'm so sorry." I nodded politely. "I know," I said. And I meant it, not because I forgave her, but because I no longer needed revenge. She had already faced it. Walking away that day felt better than any revenge I could have planned. I realized true power isn't making someone suffer. It's living well enough that they see what they lost. A week later, a local news reporter stopped by my shop for a feature story about small businesses thriving after hardship. They filmed me, asked about my journey, and called it "The Man Who Rose from the Fire." When the segment aired, people recognized my name, my face, and my story. Lydia saw it too. She texted again, "I'm proud of you." I didn't reply. I didn't need to. My silence was my answer, my peace, my victory. That night, I looked at the reflection in my shop's glass window. Not the broken man who once cried over betrayal, but the one who built something from pain. I smiled for the first time in a long while. Because when the tables turn, you don't always hear the applause. Sometimes it's quiet, like the sound of healing, like the weight finally leaving your chest. And as for Lydia, I wished her no harm. I simply hoped she'd learn what I had, that loyalty and love mean nothing without honesty. But that was her lesson to face, not mine to teach. A year later, I drove to the old motel on the edge of town, the same one where my heart had shattered into pieces. I parked in the same spot where I once watched Lydia walk out of that door with another man. But this time, my chest didn't burn, my hands didn't shake. I was calm, completely, peacefully calm. I got out of the truck and stood there for a while. The air smelled of dust and rain. The neon sign still flickered weakly, buzzing like a tired heartbeat. I closed my eyes and remembered the man I was that night. Desperate, broken, begging for answers that would never heal me. I wasn't that man anymore. I had buried him, right here, under the weight of my pain. Standing there, I realized something powerful. Revenge was never about destroying her. It was about reclaiming myself. I had spent so long trying to prove I was enough for someone who never deserved me. Now I didn't need anyone's validation. My worth wasn't tied to love or betrayal. It was built from scars, forged in silence, and earned through survival. As I looked at the flickering sign, I whispered, "Thank you." Not to her, but to the pain. Because without it, I would have stayed small, blind, and content in a false dream. Pain woke me up. Betrayal freed me. I took one last look at the motel door, the one that once held all my nightmares, and turned away. The sound of gravel under my boots felt like closure. Every step away from that place was a step toward peace. When I got back into my truck, I noticed something. A faint smile on my face. It wasn't pride. It was peace. I had forgiven her, not for her sake, but for mine. Forgiveness wasn't about letting her back in. It was about letting myself move on without the chains of resentment. As I drove off, the city lights appeared in the distance, glowing like second chances. I thought about my shop, my growing team, and the customers who now called me the honest mechanic. Thought about the future, one I built from nothing. That's when I realized the full circle of it all. Love had broken me, but strength rebuilt me. Betrayal had scarred me, but healing had defined me. I wasn't the man Lydia left. I was the man she could never find again. And that, more than any revenge, was my final reckoning. This is how my girlfriend betrayed me. Should I forgive or move on? Tell me in comments. If this story touched your heart, hit the like button, share it with your friends, and subscribe for more real stories of love, pain, and redemption.